You guys hear me okay? Everybody all right? My name is Sherman Brown. I'm here with McCarthy Strategic Solutions, moderating this panel. The panel we're in here for today is Addiction and Leadership, How Authentic and Transformative Leaders Are Emerging from the Adversity of Substance Use Disorder. So one, just making sure everybody's in the right room. We have, just to go over a few of the housekeeping here, any phones, laptops, whatever you've got out, obviously have them out, take pictures, do everything you want, but please silence them. Videotaping is not permitted, so just remember that. We've got the video going in the back for future. And you can download the RX Summit mobile app to view the PowerPoints and claim CE for the session. The order for the session, we've got two presenters. I want you to save your questions until the end. I will make sure that they have, I know these guys, they're both from Kentucky. I'm from Kentucky, so I can make sure they stay on time. But I'll make sure that we keep time for you guys' questions. We want to make sure that we're mindful of that as well. For the session, we've got Jason Roop. Jason is the Executive Director of Workforce Education at Campbellsville University. We also have Brian Privet, Government and Public Affairs Director at Isaiah House. Their bios are listed, and you can go to the app as well for those. Just be prepared, and get their information there. Without any further ado, Jason.
All right. Well, thank you, Sherman, for the introductions, and thank you guys for being here at this session today. I believe it'll be a very informative and a powerful one. And I'd like to start by just sharing something with you. Probably, in fact, not probably, the best leader that I have ever known, I met in rehab. And he wasn't a client, no, he wasn't a staff member. He was a client just like I was. And he had just gotten to the Isaiah House in October of 2013, shortly before I arrived there after a 17-year battle with addiction. And he had a checkered background, but that didn't stop him from constantly encouraging others to pursue their dreams and helping them to achieve it. He was always thinking creatively and had the determination and tenacity to accomplish his goals. My friend would go on to help hundreds of people advance their education and improve their lives and change their communities. And most importantly, he was not alone. I seen something there in that treatment setting, in that treatment facility, that was very powerful. I seen a lot of people there who had checkered past, yet they were encouraging, inspiring, and empowering others around them. It was phenomenal. And I took note of what I observed. And I turned it into my dissertation topic in 2019 and successfully defended it 3 years later when I earned my PhD. And that topic, the leadership traits of people with substance use disorder, has led to 2 peer-reviewed publications, a second study which is currently being conducted, which includes over 140 participants all across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And it's the foundation for the trait-based model of recovery, which you're about to hear about. You see, guys, it matters where we start. And for too long, addiction treatment has started from the problem, when instead we should start at the solution, because the solution is hidden within the problem. The solution is hidden within the destructive behaviors. It's these hidden treasures that are known as character traits, personality traits, experiences, but they've been hijacked by chemicals. The bottom line, when you begin to identify and start from this place and identify these hidden treasures, you're starting from within, from the place of absolutes, from the true essence of who we really are. And that's where life is found. And the shame, isolation, and hopelessness fade. And what takes center stage is a recovery journey that is filled with confidence, dignity, commitment, purpose, and hope. This is treatment from the inside out, not from the outside in. And for the next 30 minutes or so, our aim is to show you how starting from strength can change the face of addiction treatment. Here are the faculty disclosures, and here are the learning objectives. You can read over them. They're in the packet in front of you, but generally speaking, we're going to walk through the leadership traits that people with SUD commonly hold, describe the relational processes in the development of leadership, and compare the leadership approaches for those in recovery versus those who are not in recovery, and discuss how entrepreneurs in recovery can positively impact their communities through elevated employment rates. All right, so here's an overview as we get started of the trait-based model of recovery. So this model builds upon strengths, those traits that I mentioned earlier. It does not start at deficiencies. It does not start at deficits. It truly is a person-centered approach, meaning that it is tailored to each person's individual characteristics and treatment needs, and celebrates and supports the very life of that person. The model is dynamic, meaning that it continually informs itself and improves itself through a continuous feedback loop, right? Continually learning, continually growing, continually advancing. This process occurs internally between the client and the clinician, between the client and their communities. And so it allows for improvements to be made during the course of treatment and on throughout the rest of life, basically, because we all know that recovery never truly ends. And this is a model which can be adapted for a lifelong journey. So, addiction and leadership. I originally conducted a study that covered a three-year period that included 15 participants from very diverse backgrounds all across the United States. Some New York Times bestselling authors, some media moguls, a lot of influencers that you would recognize. And I spent over a 3-year period, numerous hours interviewing them, carrying out focus groups, observations, and field notes. And the findings revealed 21 themes. Again, either character traits, personality traits, or experiences. 21 themes which people with SUD commonly share with great leaders. Now, we're working on the second study. It includes over 140 participants, and we've taken those 21 themes and distilled them down into 10 traits which are most often in active addiction. I said that right, leadership traits in active addiction, and we'll clarify that in just a moment. And so we also were able to create an assessment survey using 63 questions to identify not only the leadership traits, but all the traits, positive and negative, that we possess. And what has emerged so far in this study, the second study, which is currently being conducted, there are 4 prominent traits that people in addiction hold, and that is resilience, creativity, gratitude, and self-awareness. And the research team is myself, Dr. Eric Carter, who's not here today, Brian Privet, and Dr. Dan Phillips. And only one of these researchers has a history of substance use disorder. Guess who? So what you're looking at now, this is a table which originated from that original study. And on the left-hand side, you have the 8 leadership dimensions according to transformative and authentic leadership theories. And on the right-hand side, you have a collection of those 21 themes. Some are repeated in multiple dimensions or categories. And so you can kind of see how this maps on to the dimensions, those traits, how they kind of can be fleshed out within each of those dimensions. And so I looked at leadership, right? There's a lot of definitions for leadership. And basically it's influence, and it's a process that occurs. But most importantly, here's what's fascinating about transformational leadership and people in addiction, right? Transformational leadership has more to do with an interior way of knowing and imparting those ways of knowing instead of focusing on external structures and processes. So there's an internal awareness, an internal dynamism that's occurring in transformational leadership. And this is shared or exchanged not so much through procedures or processes, but by simply being near somebody who's a transformational leader. People in addiction and recovery are also authentic leaders. Now, most notably, as the recovery journey unfolds, this emerges, this authentic leadership. And so what happens here is in recovery, and before that even, in addiction, we realize that to uphold this perception of perfection is pointless. We learn to drop the mask because we failed so many times. We realize the mask does us no good anyway. So we learn to be authentic with one another, right? And what that does, that removes a layer of separation between the leader and the group. It allows for quicker bonds of connection to develop. And it allows for stronger bonds of appreciation and trust and gratitude to emerge so that the entire group is focused on accomplishing whatever goal is in front of them. This is the advantage that people in addiction recovery offer. You know what? We've got to be rigorously authentic in recovery. Our lives depend on it. And so the next slide shows you those 10 leadership traits which emerged from the first and also now in the second study. So these are those traits that are commonly held by people with substance use disorder, even in active addiction, and people who are great leaders. And so those traits are tenacity, resilience, empathy, authenticity. People in recovery especially are motivational. They're self-aware, they're creative, socially intelligent, determined, and appreciative. And so what this model does, it actually changes the entire dynamic, the entire perspective. And instead of starting from deficiencies or weaknesses or failures, it starts from strength. Right out of the gate, it introduces dignity. It uplifts self-confidence, right? It builds and recognizes those valuable traits that we all possess. And so when we build upon strengths, a lot of great things happen. And this approach is not necessarily a cookie-cutter approach. It allows for a person-centered approach to take place, right? It broadens the definition of what successful recovery means. And another reason why our starting point matters, instead of focusing exclusively on problems and failures, which is the approach taken by the traditional model, the trait-based approach allows clinicians to acknowledge every individual has a very unique set of strengths and abilities that he or she can rely on to overcome challenges. The trait-based approach aligns itself with mental health recovery by focusing on a person's ability and helping build confidence, purpose, and hope for the recovery journey ahead. And studies actually show that strength-based approach is linked to positive recovery outcomes, improved behavioral patterns, and life satisfaction. And again, all environments contain resources that can help individuals develop their strengths. And so this asset-based approach results in improved self-confidence, understanding, and momentum for the recovery journey ahead. Now, the trait-based model of recovery.